There is an estimated 1 billion common colds and flus that occur in America annually, with children getting nearly 6 to 10 episodes a year. Adults get over 2 to 4 annually. There is over 20 million lost days of school and over 24 million lost days of work every year. Welcome to another episode of Health and Healing. I'm your host, Dr. Noto. Today's episode is on the common cold and flu. Common colds and flus is the #1 cause of illness in America. It's also the #1 reason people miss their job or school. Did you know that there's over 200 viruses that cause the common cold and flu? They range from the enterovirus all the way to Coxsackie virus. But by far the most common and dreaded is the rhinovirus, which accounts for up to 50% of common colds and flus in America. Common colds and flus commonly occur in autumn and spring. Today, we're going to show you various methods on how to keep you healthy all year round. We're here today with Dr. Pericles Lance, and our topic is colds and flus. Dr. Lance, thank you for letting us come today.
Oh, no problem. I'm glad you're here.
Can you please tell us the difference between a cold and a flu?
Well, first of all, colds and flus are both caused by viruses. But you're right, there are important differences. Except at the outset, they can actually seem like very similar infections because they both have runny nose, congestion, coughing. However, people with the flu will progress to have more severe symptoms, like extreme sweating and shaking, which we call rigors, general body ache and malaise, and people with the flu are generally much sicker and for a longer duration of time.
And what is it that causes the cold? What causes the flu?
Well, the cold is caused by many, many different viruses. There are actually over 100 types of viruses that can cause a cold. And that's one of the problems with treating the common cold, is because there's so many causes, it's impossible to really develop a vaccine. In contrast, the influenza virus is caused by typically influenza A, influenza B, and sometimes influenza C. They change every year, but it's something that's more readily tracked, and you can develop a vaccine.
Is there any way that we know of now that can prevent either the cold or the flu?
Being a virus, when somebody sneezes, these particles that are microscopic are going into the air, and you can simply breathe them in, and then it comes in contact with your nasal mucosa, and you can get sick. It's also important to recognize hand washing as a feature of prevention, because when people shake hands, they often transmit the virus, as well as cleaning contaminated surfaces, because the virus can stay active for close to a week on just a plain surface at room temperature. Now, generally you want to keep your immune system up. People who sleep less than 7 hours a night, as compared to people who sleep about 8 hours or more a night, are 3 times more likely to come down with a cold. Also, if you're highly stressed, your immune system is going to be suppressed. Or if you're a smoker, you're also going to have increased risk for acquiring, or when you have a cold, you're going to be sick for a longer duration of time.
So say we come down with a cold or the flu, what's the best way to treat it?
So the common cold is a self-limited disease, and Americans spend $2.9 billion on treatment. But those are basically all symptomatic treatments. And it's important to recognize that antibiotics should never be used for the common cold.
Why is that?
Because it's a virus and antibiotics only work on bacteria. So it's ineffective. With the flu, it's a little more important to pay attention to the person's symptoms, especially if they're very young or very old, because people still die from the flu. And there are around 30,000 deaths a year in the United States from the influenza virus. Now, the flu virus travels around the world. And the way that the vaccine is created is that researchers go into Asia, and the flu virus can actually be held in birds, mammalian populations. So they go and they test sick people and sick animals, and they try and identify strains of the virus that's going to be traveling around the world. And then they bring those vaccines to the United States before the epidemic hits, and they try and protect people.
So there's no drugs we can take when we get the flu that's going to magically cure us in a day or two?
Well, certainly not for the cold. However, with the flu, there are 2 antiviral medications that can be used. And those medications are effective within 24 to 36 hours of symptoms. They certainly will limit the severity and the duration of the illness.
In America, we spend millions, if not billions of dollars on nutritional supplements, herbs. Are any of these effective?
There haven't been very many well-controlled studies. people use things like echinacea, vitamin C, and zinc. And there's no definitive study that says, yes, these things definitely work. So I personally do recommend that people take vitamin C. Echinacea is fine.
There's a lot of wives' tales out there about colds. Is there any truth to any of these?
Certainly you should be well hydrated. And if, thinking of chicken soup gets you out of bed and gets you to intake some fluids, that's important. The same thing with orange juice. You need to be hydrated to have a healthy immune system. The orange juice contains vitamin C. But those things in and of themselves are not intrinsically different than just taking good care of yourself and staying hydrated.
Is there any symptom that you feel if they should be calling their doctor?
Sure. Certainly if somebody mounts a very high fever. It's very unusual for someone with a cold to have a fever. Or if they start to have violent shaking and profuse sweating, it's a greater indication that they're suffering from the flu. They really should seek immediate therapy and be followed closely with their doctor.
We're about to meet Donna James, clinical nutritionist, and she's going to tell us whether the food we eat will help ward off a nasty cold.
Well, nutrition has a direct effect on your ability to mitigate catching a cold or a flu. So if you think of your immune system, which helps protect you from a cold or a flu, as being analogous to an athlete, if that athlete doesn't train appropriately, doesn't fuel up appropriately, then his performance is going to become impaired.
So there are certain foods people could eat this time of year that might help them ward off getting a cold?
Oh yes, absolutely. So the nutrients that we're concerned with primarily are your antioxidant nutrients such as vitamins A, C, E, zinc and selenium, magnesium, manganese and B6. And they're primarily found in fruit and vegetables with the exception of zinc and B6, which is found in red meats, poultry, fish and seafood. But two of my personal favorites would actually be watercress. One of the top 10 antioxidant foods out there. They're really rich in vitamin C, magnesium and beta-carotene, and they're also abundant in potassium.
People talk about mushrooms a lot and about how it's good for you. I mean, what's in the mushrooms that's helping the body?
When people eat the mushrooms, and what it does is it actually increases the activity of your T helper cells and your natural killer cells. So therefore you've got immune enhancing properties with that.
Is there any common mistakes that they're making that might be playing a role in suppressing their immune system?
Oh yes, absolutely. So number one would be consuming too much sugar, because sugar can suppress our immune system for up to 5 hours. So if you're eating it at regular intervals throughout the day, then you can permanently suppress your immune system until you take that sugar out. I think we're all aware of the obvious sugar choices such as soda, cakes, cookies, candies, those things.
Right.
But it's really the hidden sugars that we have in our foods that can suppress our immune system. Because here's an example. We've got a really healthy cereal. It's organic. It's got pomegranate and cherries in it. It's a great antioxidant.
Looks very healthy.
Yeah, so something that you'd pick up. But it's got in 1.5 cups, it's got 26 grams of sugar. 26 grams of sugar. And so what that means is there's 1 teaspoon for every 4 grams. So we have got almost 6 teaspoons of sugar just in this one serving. Yeah, I'm going to point out another one. Healthy yogurt.
Yogurt?
Yogurt, yes.
Even the fat-free yogurt?
Even the fat-free yogurt, yes. And so what do we have here? We've got 22 grams of sugar.
Wow.
So we've got almost another 6 teaspoons of sugar. So in this alone, we've got 12 teaspoons of sugar just in our breakfast. And it's healthy. We perceive it to be healthy.
Something good.
Yes, that's right. So that's the biggest mistake.